All right, everybody, we're back. This is the latest episode of Flight Path. It's Friday, May 2nd, 2025, 1 week after the NFL draft. I'm Andrew Duhan. Joined alongside me is my electric co-host. Some of you guys know him as Jay Ben. He's the former radio host at 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, infamous Falcons insider, professor, coach, whatever you want, he could do it. Jeff Benedict. Find him at on X at jben_flightpath, new handle. Talk your shit, but don't cry when he snaps back. You definitely don't want to mess with him too much. Packed agenda before we dive in. Just wanted to thank all of you guys for listening, subscribing. We only go as far as you guys take us, and we're really grateful for you guys to join us on the 7th episode of Flight Path. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Jeff, we're 1 week out from the NFL draft. The Falcons, for once, did really well to exceeded everybody's expectations. Took 2 pass rushers. They were aggressive, traded up, and for once, in the 3rd and 4th round, we took players that weren't, that didn't shock anyone. It seems like we went for value, and we even saw that with the UDFA class. Is it fair to say that this was truly Terry Fontenot's first class where he didn't have any influence from anyone else in the organization? Like, what was so different about this draft class compared to others?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, right? Is I feel like because this draft class was so different, right, from start to finish, and I'm even including the undrafted free agents that they went after. This, and I said this last week, y'all. I feel like this is the first time that Terry has had full control of the draft. He didn't have Rich McKay standing over him, spanking his ass, saying, no, you can't go do that, right? Like, I felt like this was the first time, and there's no doubt that Raheem Morris had some input into this, but I felt like this was the first time that Terry was truly in control of his own draft room, and I think we see the results of that. I know he wasn't the GM in New Orleans, but as an assistant GM, they were pretty good in their draft, right? I mean, we've talked about some of the guys they've gone after, especially on the defensive side of the ball there. When he was in New Orleans. And I felt like this was really kind of reminiscent of those drafts, from the personnel and not just getting, if you're going to go best player available, I felt like they did that in some of these situations. You got Xavier Watts in the 4th round. Like, that dude was a 2nd round talent. There's no way you're not going to tell me he wasn't best player available. You got Jalen Walker, who was supposed to go in the top 10 to 15, best player available. Right. So it felt like this was the draft where kind of, the fans wanting him to address certain situations. He talked about he wants best player available. I felt like this was the draft where both of those collided, and the end result was spectacular. And I don't give a shit what the NFL.com says or what Fox Sports says or what some idiot at ESPN says. The Falcons knocked it out of the park, and there aren't many teams in the NFL that actually had better overall drafts than the Falcons did.
Totally agreed with that too. And it's funny because everyone's talking about, Rams fleeced the Falcons, whatever. Like, they got the 2026 first overall pick, and then you see these way too early 2026 mock drafts that have the Falcons pick being in the top 5. First of all signs are pointing to us keeping Cousins. So even if Penix gets injured, this team isn't winning less than 8 games. There's just too much talent. So that pick is not sniffing the top 5, the top 10. Maybe we'll land exactly where we were last year at 15. And then it just becomes an argument. How good is James Pierce? Because a lot of people have varying opinions on him. Some people are saying he's the 5th best edge rusher in this class. Some people are pointing to his off-field issues, which we've talked about, and it's sort of like not even a conversation starter. But Jeff, one thing that I'm gonna post on Twitter is a clip from Bill Belichick's podcast during the college football season. It's called The Coach, and it's very dry, but a lot of great material in there, of course, because he's a genius. And him and Michael Lombardi, Matt Patricia, they were all talking up James Pierce, talking about how dominant he is, how powerful he is. So I'm going to post that clip on on X later. But I mean, that goes to show you, everyone, Kuiper, McShay, oh, Falcons reached for a pass rusher. No, they didn't. They were going to take this guy at 15. So it is what it is.
I mean,
at that point.
Even if you believe he was the 5th best edge rusher, this draft was really deep in first round talent, right? I mean, there's a lot of people, me excluded, because I was very vocal. But people even thought Mike Green was was one of the 3 or 4 best pass rushers. And while I disagree with that you can certainly make the argument that means that this draft was really deep at that position. So if you're going to sit here and tell me that James Pierce Jr. is the 5th best, that tells me that the 4 in front of him should all be contending for Rookie of the Year then, right? Because like this draft was really deep at that position. So again, if you want to tell me he was 5th best, that's fine. Taking the 5th best guy at a position, especially where it's really deep, right? Listen, like I would almost say, like arguing that, taking, and obviously he didn't go 5th overall, but you get a guy like Josh Allen, 5th quarterback taken in a draft, right? Like you're like, okay, he was the 5th best quarterback. Well, the other 4 ahead of him are really fucking good, right? Like that's just, and there's just certain arguments. Michael Penix was what the 4th quarterback taken last year. Okay, well then the other 3 must be really fucking good, right? Like I just don't understand the argument there where other than just to try to shit on the Falcons. But again, it goes back to something that you and I talked about, and you got a couple thousand views on this clip. You talked about last week about people are only down on the Falcons taking him at 26, trading back up because the Falcons didn't ask for permission, right? Like they didn't call ESPN, they didn't call Adam Schefter, they didn't call Ian, they didn't call those guys and say, hey, by the way, we're going to go do this, hurry up and break it. So everybody kind of gets it 30 seconds ahead on Twitter. And because the Falcons didn't do that, they're all up in arms and they're letting the Falcons know, hey, if you don't run shit by us, we're going to make your public perception something really terrible. Like the fact in 2026, we think you're going to get the 3rd best fucking pick. And I've seen that nonsense and it's absolute garbage because knock on wood, the only way the Falcons have a top 3 pick in 2026 is if half the team dies in a fucking plane accident, right? Like that is literally the only way this football team is a top 3 pick next year. Something drastic and dramatic and horrid has to happen. And by the way, I'm not wishing that on anybody. Horrid has to happen for this team to be that bad. And it's just not the case. We're not the Panthers, right? We're not the Browns. This is not a team that is going to be you've been 7, 7, 7, 8. You've been middle of the pack for the last 5 years. You missed the playoffs in 7 seasons, but you also haven't been in the bottom 3 of the NFL. And there's no reason at all to think that this team with one of the best offenses in the NFL address every need on the defensive side of the ball is now all of a sudden going to be worse than they've been in the last 8 years. Like make that bullshit make sense to me.
It's so funny. The only way that I could see it, Jeff, realistically, like drastic scenarios outside, we trade Kirk and MP9 goes down. Then, yes, we lost, but it doesn't look like that's what's going to happen. So even if we get into that catastrophic scenario of MP9 going down, we got Kirk there. And honestly, it would be the most Falcons thing in the world if Kirk leads us to the playoffs 1 year after we bench him. So hopefully, MP9 stays healthy and everything. We obviously don't want that to happen. But that to me, and one thing that everybody should be happy about though, is when the mainstream rips you. That's generally a good thing because you don't want the public to be high on you. Last year, everybody was like, oh, Falcons got Kirk Cousins. They are a lock for the NFC South. And what happened? We were far from it. Everyone was betting us. Now, we're in a perfect scenario. Everyone's betting against us, and we're going to surprise people. So that is what you guys want. We have them exactly where we want them. And another thing to also follow along too, some of these insiders, they're chalk. They're always going to follow predictions that follow the public. They're gonna kind of rinse, repeat. These are the same people thinking that the Chiefs were gonna dismantle the Eagles in the Super Bowl, not giving the Eagles a chance or recognizing how great that offensive line is because they've never really done that before, right? Those same people are now betting against the Falcons, which is good. One person that's actually been speaking about us positively almost at every single corner. Jeff, this is going to surprise you. Mike Florio. I'll dive into his comments a little bit more, but this guy is basically contrarian. Anything that the public thinks, he goes opposite to drive views. So do I think that like he's actually high on the Falcons? I'm not sure, but he always provides the other perspective. He went as far today on his podcast to say that, oh, Falcons might actually get something of value from Kirk. They're doing something very smart, because what people don't realize, what mainstream doesn't realize is, and he's right, I actually do agree with him with this, during training camp, there could be an injury. And if there's an injury to a team like San Francisco, Brock Purdy going down, or Rams, them losing Matt Stafford, what if the Vikings, JJ McCarthy's just not ready to go and they missed out on Aaron Rodgers because he's in Pittsburgh? Now all of those teams are calling us and we're in the driver's seat of those negotiations. So that's kind of that contrarian thinking that he does, but I actually do think that's possible. Jeff, anything to share on that?
And I've said that for the last 3 weeks on this podcast, though. Like that exact situation, I said it 2 weeks ago on this podcast. This is a situation that I can see going into the season and them getting a call when somebody goes down and gets hurt, right? Like that to me is not shocking. That again, I've said all along that if you're going to deal for Kirk Cousins, you're going to play by the Falcons rules, and the Falcons are more than willing to keep him. I said, I think it was episode 4 or 5. I said the phone calls will light up when somebody gets hurt. And at that point, you are desperate to make something happen. And at that point, you're playing right into the Falcons' hands. So I've said for a month now that this is a long game, and the Falcons they're just not in a rush, because ultimately his numbers on the books, that's not going to change, right? Yes, there's a lot of post June 1st things that could happen, and but ultimately, if you're not going to give the Falcons one of two scenarios that they want, which I've talked about repeatedly on this podcast, they're just simply going to keep him and keep moving forward. And yeah, when your quarterback gets hurt, you're either going to call the Falcons or you're going to call the Giants, because they've got 19 different quarterbacks on their roster as well, right? So one of those two things is going to happen. If you are the 49ers, or you are, insert whatever other, playoff caliber team is in it, you would much rather have Kirk Cousins than Jameis Winston anyway. And so, yeah, you're going to call the Falcons and you're going to give up something in order to get him. And, the Falcons have zero desire to force something to happen, because it puts them in a really good situation. They have a really good team. Again, this offense is going to be explosive. They're really good. And you give everybody now another year under second-year coordinator. You give everybody a second year together. You've got wide receivers now that are going to actually take throws from 9, which didn't happen last year. And so, like, there's a lot that is going to go right this year. People asked me yesterday, I did, not necessarily a question and answer, but I was killing some time on the flight to New York. And somebody said, how do you feel about this year? I'm fucking optimistic, right? Like I feel really, but I go into every season optimistic, right? I've got too much shit going on for me to be depressed about my football teams, where I hope every year is going to be a good year. And then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But I got better shit to do in the offseason than to spend 6 months being upset over something. I feel really good about this football team. I feel really good that this team can win 12, 13, 14 games if things fall the right way. But minimum to me, this is an 11-win football team. 11-6 to me is the floor. I think 14-3 is probably the ceiling. And I think they get a top 3 seed. So I feel really good about this. And keeping Kirk Cousins, it just, to me, solidifies all that. And so, stop worrying about draft picks. Stop trying to get rid of the guy. There is no quarterback controversy. Kirk and Mike get along really well. There's just no issues here, other than the fact that your quarterback who took $100 million from you wants to be a starter. Well, you shouldn't have sucked ass last year, and you would be.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're talking about the most Falcons thing ever of Kirk coming in and MP9, knock on wood, hopefully he doesn't get injured, leading them to the playoffs or whatever. But wouldn't it be hilarious if the Falcons somehow get the first round pick back from the Rams if Stafford got injured? Now, I'm not wishing injury on anyone, but could you imagine? Because they'll be desperate at that point. They need to compete. That roster needs to win now. Then we're in the driver's seat, and it's not a negotiation of how much salary you're willing to take on. It's a negotiation of how much you're taking that salary and you're paying us some money. So that would be interesting to see us in the driver's seat in those negotiations. But Jeff, let's move on to the next topic. So on top of the Falcons really knocking it out of the park with their first 4 selections, and I like the 7th round guy, the lineman they got too. They also, I think, for the first time did really well with the undrafted free agents. Josh Simon, for example, tight end from Carolina. I like that pick. South Carolina. I like that pickup. But the one that really caught my eye was Kobe Bryant, the corner out of Kansas. Now, there was a picture surfacing Twitter of him in a number 2 Falcons uniform. And I'm going to defend him here. I don't think his intention was to take the number. He's just really excited to be a Falcon. 2, I believe, was his college number. He was just putting it out there. But then, our loyal fan base, the people that, just love Matt Ryan so much are like, yeah, let him take 2. No problem about that. Jeff, what are your thoughts? Should Kobe Bryant or anybody else, because I don't want to pin it on him, be allowed to wear number 2?
No. And I said this he could come in, be the one of the few undrafted rookies that end up getting to the Hall of Fame, right? You just don't know how these guys are going to pan out. And for me, I'm sorry, but there are just certain numbers that you don't let guys wear. I mean, I was pissed off last year when they let Emory Jones walk around wearing Julio's number, right? Like, he was this undrafted guy, free agent comes in, all of a sudden you're going to throw number 11 on him. I'll be damned. And I feel the same way about Matt. Like, there are just certain numbers where guys have to earn that number. And to me, Matt Ryan should also be one of those guys that says yes or no, he can wear my number. Almost like, what's his name, calling Lawrence Taylor, Abdul Carter, right? He wore 22 in high school, wore 11 at Penn State, calls Lawrence Taylor and says, hey, I want to wear 56 for the Giants. Lawrence Taylor said, kindly fuck off. Like, yeah, obviously he didn't say that because he's not a co-kid anymore, but he just said, no, you need to go blaze your own trail. And so for me, which is really weird, by the way, because Abdul Carter, again, never wore 56. So why you would call and ask Lawrence Taylor if you could wear his number is ridiculous to me. But I feel like that's the level of respect that Matt Ryan has earned, given what he gave this franchise. And I know he just retired. I know he hasn't been gone long. And no, I'm not saying he's on Lawrence Taylor's level. Although he is a Hall of Famer, there are different levels to the Hall of Fame, right? Lawrence Taylor is one of the top 2 or 3 best defensive players of all time. But for me, and I agree with you, right? Like, Kobe wasn't trying to insinuate he was going to wear number 2. He just had somebody do the quick little Photoshop creativity thing, and I get that, I understand it. But leave it to some of the retards on this fan base to go, oh yeah, let him wear number 2. No, absolutely not. Right. And for me, there are just certain numbers, 2, 11, Mike Ken's number, there's probably 4 or 5 numbers I feel like you should not be allowed to wear without permission of either that player or that player's family if they're no longer here. And for me, 2 and 11 start up there. I don't care if you want to call me new school, even though I'm 45 years old. There are just, I understand that you don't retire. The Falcons do not retire numbers, right? But there are certain numbers that should be not allowed unless you've earned that number and you've been given permission by that player or that player's family to wear that number. And for me, Matt will always be on that list. I don't give a shit. For a long time, there was the whole, Matt Ryan versus Michael Vick thing, right? Like, the fan base was split in half. And I always thought that was stupid because they're very different players. They both brought a lot to this franchise. And people forget that Matt Ryan came in and rescued this franchise in the turmoil left by Mike Vick. And I'm not shitting on Mike because I'm a big Mike fan. Mike is one of the top 5 players in this franchise's history. I don't care how long he was here. But Matt took this franchise to a whole other level. Matt Ryan didn't have a losing season in his first, 10 years? They went 500, but he didn't have a losing season in forever, right? And you looked at the number of wins. At one point, he was 30 games over 500 as a starting quarterback in Atlanta. I think the prior 25 quarterbacks in franchise history were +3, right? He did things that the Falcons had never had before, and so he's earned a different level of respect. So let Kobe Bryant wear whatever number he wants to wear, except for number 2. If he's got to buy 22 off of somebody, or he's got to buy a derivative 2, whatever it takes. But yeah, 2's off limits.
Yeah, and I think people really forget where we were as a franchise in 07, coming off the Leftwich Harrington starts. I mean, that was really dark times. And, Falcons took Ryan third overall. Like, he was passed up by the Dolphins and I believe the Rams in that '08 draft. So, I mean, he, like, the fact that we were even able to get him at 3 and the value that he provided us, like, for 15 years, it was incredible. I mean, look, I would say maybe out of his 15 seasons with us, 13 of them we were solid in the conversation. Will we make playoffs? Will we get over to the hump and go to the Super Bowl in 13 of those seasons, right? We haven't had that one time since he left. Maybe you can point to last year where we became a threat, but no one thought that like the Falcons would really go that far. Ryan, every single year, even in the dark times during 2013-14 where we're kind of rebuilding, like we were always going into that season like, yeah, but we got Roddy, we got Julio, we got Matt. Like we have a puncher's chance here, but you know the rest of the team unfortunately wasn't built around him. And let's not forget, he is the only player in history to have an MVP. So I mean, look, you and I have different levels of love for Ryan. I think you say he's surefire Hall of Famer. That's your opinion. I think he's more borderline. I don't know if he's like realistically, I don't know if he's going to get in just from a perception standpoint, but does he deserve, like he's definitely like in our ring of honor. Like he is, I think, the best player we've had, the most important player we've had in franchise history. And I hope somebody elevates above that. I hope Penix brings a Super Bowl to Atlanta because then he will be the most important player in franchise history. It's that simple. So you get that first Super Bowl win. Do you disagree with that, Jeff? If Penix wins the Super Bowl, does he go above Ryan?
No, you've got to break all of Ryan's. You got to do more than that, right? I mean, Nick Foles has a Super Bowl MVP for Christ's sake, right? Like that's true. To me, the Super Bowl. Like everybody wants to knock on the Super Bowl. It's hard to play better in the Super Bowl than Matt Ryan did, right? I mean, you go back and you look at what that Super Bowl was. And you know, I know everybody loves to blame him because you know the defense gave up points and somehow he played defense in that game too. But you know, to me, there's more to it than just winning a Super Bowl. You know, if he wins that Super Bowl, he's a surefire Hall of Famer at that point. There's no doubt in my mind because that game was blown and he's always going to be the one to see him blame it. I understand exactly where you're coming from. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer at all, and for that reason, right? But I do think he eventually gets in. But you know, just winning a Super Bowl based upon the fact that Nick Foles has one. You know, what's his name up there in New York? You know, has one with the Ravens.
Flacco.
Flacco has one, right? Like there are guys who were not nearly as good as Matt Ryan was who have Super Bowls. So for me, that's not the end all be all. And I know there are going to be people that disagree, and that's fine. But you know, does Penix? You know, does he have he's got the tools? Can he stay healthy? And then, you know, what kind of leadership does he have? And that to me is also kind of what set Matt Ryan apart was the leadership aspect of that. This franchise had never had a leader like Matt was. You know, even with Mike Vick, right? Like, you know, Vick always talked about, I never opened my playbook. Like, and he wasn't saying that boastfully. He was ashamed of how he treated his first opportunity in the NFL, right? Where Matt Ryan didn't have that. Matt Ryan, you know, he was the leader. He was the franchise. He was, you know, he was every adjective you can think of. And so those are big shoes to fill. I don't expect Michael Penix to fill those shoes. I want MP9 to be himself. I want him to forge his own path. I don't want the comparisons to Matt or to Mike or to anybody else. I want him to be his own guy, right? And so you will never hear me say, oh yeah, well, Matt Ryan didn't do it like that, or Michael Vick didn't do it like that. Like I'm going to let Michael Penix be Michael Penix. And I'll let the idiots take care of all that bullshit when it comes to comparing him to others and what he does or doesn't do. And I want the young man to be successful. I want him to stay healthy because to your point, I think if he does all those things, he absolutely will win a Super Bowl. I think you are starting to kind of see this team put together, and if this rookie class is as good as you and I think they are, I think they will do something special here by year 3 or 4. As they grow together and continue to build continuity.
100% agreed. And I think it's the first time in a while where I'm really pumped up about this coming season on multiple fronts. Not only our rookie class, but just the way Penix looked in those last 3 games gives us a lot to look forward to. So on a less positive note, Jeff. One step forward, two steps back. Jeff Ulbrich, the DC of the Falcons, left his iPad open, I guess at home, and his son was able to retrieve the number of Shedeur Sanders. And obviously, everyone's seen it already. Jax Ulbrich and his friends prank called Shedeur the night of the draft, impersonating Mickey Loomis and basically, acting as if Shedeur was drafted by the Saints, which was a really not the smartest thing in the world to do. When I was younger, prank calling was part of the deal. Like that, everyone did that when they were younger. So I'm not even upset about that. But these guys, first of all, they're much older. They're in college. They're 21 years old. And second of all, if you're going to do it, don't be an idiot and record yourself. Jeff, how do you feel about this? How much blame goes on to Brick? Is the NFL punishment fair where they fined the Falcons $250, they fined Ulbrich $100K? Like, was that too heavy or did they get it just right?
So I think people have to, and by the way, it wasn't just Shedeur Sanders that they did that to, right? Tyler Warren came out this weekend and said, yeah, I got the prank call that I got came from the same number. So it wasn't just the Sanders thing. Like the two high profile guys that we know got prank called both came from that telephone number, right? So we know it was more than just one. I wish people could separate the two, right? And by the two, I mean the two instances. You have the prank call, which I have no problem with. Like Jeff Teague said on his podcast, it was fucking legendary, right? It was phenomenal, right? But then you have the other part that Brick is being held responsible for, right? And people seem to conflate the two issues, and they're not two issues, or they're not one issue. They're conflating them into one. You have the prank call, which I have no problem with, but how he obtained that number is where we draw the line. I'm not going to say what you and I do both outside of here, because we all know that cancel culture exists, and we say something, they piss people off, they call our employer. But you and I both have access to tens of millions of people's private information in our day-to-day lives, right? Like I can literally, if I leave my laptop open from my company, and we have more than 40 million customers in what I do. Okay, if I leave that laptop open and my son or my daughter come home from school, and they get on that laptop and they steal somebody's private information, they use that for their entertainment in any way, shape, or form. Prank calls, drive-by egging, TPing somebody's house, whatever. I'm not even talking about stealing somebody's information as far as like social security numbers, just basic stuff that we used to prank people on. I lose my job. Like my company doesn't say, oh, it was just a phone call. It was just, you just egged somebody's house. No, I get fired. Right. And so I think people aren't understanding the seriousness of what happened with Brick, that he was 100% responsible for. Miss me with the bullshit about how, well, he shouldn't, how would you know your son isn't going to come home and open that up? Why the fuck would you leave it out to begin with? Like if it's team issue technology, not password protected, and you leave it out in your house so anybody that walks into your home now has access to private information, right? Again, just a telephone number, that's fine. But in my day-to-day life, I get fucking fired for that, right? Like my laptop has to be computer protected, password protected, and it has to be shut down and it has to be put away at night. Like there are very specific standards. And so, yes, Brick is 100% responsible for what happened. Again, two different scenarios here: the prank call and how he obtained it. You can make the argument. I've seen the dumbass argument about how, well, why is the NFL sending the defensive coordinator this private information? They send it out to fucking teams, right? And whoever the team has on their distribution list is who got it from the NFL. It is what it is. But and people forget that coaches are also involved in the draft process, right? Like they're involved in these interviews. Like they are providing different perspectives. And so, yes, what happened is 100% his responsibility. I love the fact that, unlike our fan base, he took responsibility for it. And he said, this was on me, because I'll tell you what, the dumbasses that I've seen in my mentions and everywhere else talking about how he shouldn't be punished is fucking ridiculous. Like if he's responsible with that iPad or laptop or whatever it was, and he puts it away and he has the password on it, this shit doesn't happen. Again, if you obtain that information some other way and you call him, prank call him, I have no fucking problem with it. The call is not the problem. It's how he got the information that is a problem, because normal people in day-to-day jobs lose their jobs over that bullshit, not $100,000 fine. I have no problem with what the NFL did. It could have been a lot worse, right? They
Yeah.
could have taken draft picks. They could have done a lot of other things. So for me, I don't have a problem with that. He's absolutely responsible for it. I don't give a shit how old his son is, because ultimately, if he is responsible with that team issued technology, it doesn't happen to begin with.
Man, I don't even want to think about the conversation that Brick had with his son after that. Like, you are like, look, Brick, as good of a guy as he is, stand up guy. Like, he went up there, took full responsibility, like a man should do, like a father should do. Like, that was amazing. I like class. He's an class A act, right? But here's the bottom line. He just, finished up a pretty tumultuous tenure with the Jets. This is kind of his last shot as a DC, in my opinion. Like, he screws this up, and I don't know that he's going to elevate to the DC ranks anytime soon. So, like, this is sort of make or break. And, like, you are playing with your dad's career. This is everything your father has worked for. And he got a taste of being a head coach with the Jets. And he's a player-friendly coach. Like, if he does well with the Falcons, he could get another gig. That is totally conceivable. But now you go and do that and you put your dad's ass on the line like that. Like, he could have been man, if this was early in the offseason, Jeff, like if we were trying to make the decision between him and, I don't know, Lou Anarumo or Robert Saleh, this could have been the deciding factor right here. Jax is very lucky that we're too deep into the offseason for it not to be serious enough to fire him, because I promise you, if we were interviewing a bunch of candidates and some bullshit like this came out, I don't think he gets this job. So, like, the timing was everything here.
Oh, I completely agree. And, it's a black eye for the Falcons, and it sucks because it is one of those, one step forward, 6 steps back type of thing. And, but, ultimately, if this is as bad as it gets this offseason, we're in pretty good fucking shape. It's embarrassing. You wish it hadn't happened, but ultimately it just costs you a couple $100,000. It doesn't cost you draft picks. It doesn't cost you wins. It doesn't cost you, suspensions or firings. It could have been a lot worse. So for me, pay the fine, move on, and let's get ready for 2025.
Any other business, Jeff? I mean, we're not going to talk about what we do outside of this, but I leave my laptop open, no questions asked. I've been in the industry that I'm in for more than a decade. I work my freaking ass off and poured in like hundreds, like I don't even want to talk about like how much time goes into like our outside of podcast jobs, but they wouldn't even think twice. It's not even a discussion. You're out, no questions asked. It's the fact that there are not a lot of people that can do what Brick can do, and it's too late into the offseason. That's why he kept his job. Otherwise, this is definitely a fireable offense. I'm glad he kept it, and I hope that he kind of uses this as fire. Like, I can't fuck this up. We got to go all in. All the best to him. He's a great guy, stand-up guy, and I hope that this is this is just like the lowest point he'll get, and everything else is going to trend up for him.
Completely agree.
Okay, let's jump into the some rumors and moves that the Falcons can make, and then we can end it from there. One of the things that happened this past week, Jeff, is that there was the deadline to pick up the 5th-year options on May 1st, and the Falcons kind of took it to the end of the very close to the deadline to extend Drake London, or to exercise, I should say, his 5th-year option. Do you think that an extension is looming, or could he do you think that they're going to try to get him to play under the, he's still under his rookie deal. So this year is his last year of the rookie deal. Next year would be the 5th-year option. Do you think that they're going to make him play both years without an extension?
I mean, I would be shocked if they didn't have some sort of extension going into next year. I don't think he'll get one this year, but I think, next offseason, especially when they have a lot more cap room to play with, because ultimately doing it now doesn't necessarily open up a whole lot of cap space for them. It might, but, I think you'll see one next year when they have a little bit more room and can create some more. And so, I think that I think London wants to be here. I think he's really excited about playing with Penix and the opportunities and the potential. I'm not shocked it took him that long. Most teams, especially since it's right after the draft, right? Like, I mean, it's, there's a lot going on. So, I think he's happy to be here. I'm sure he's happy to have that picked up. I think you have to use this year, though, if you're the Falcons, to figure out who he is. And I don't mean that negatively, right? But like he's definitely had a lot of ebbs and flows in his first 3 years as an NFL wide receiver. There's times where you're like, damn, especially those last 3 games with 9, he looked like a number 1. There are also times where he's looked like a number 3, right? And so there's definitely been a learning curve for him. There's no doubt he has the potential to be a number 1. But I think the Falcons want to use this year to kind of figure out exactly what kind of number 1 is he and where's he going to fall on that pay scale. You look at the numbers that wide receivers are making right now. He's not a $40 million a year wide receiver, right? Like, to me, he hasn't done anything to even come close to that number. But as guys get extensions, that next man up, they get to reset the market. And Drake London is not a reset market kind of guy yet. Can he turn into one? He could, but I think he's more in line with kind of what T. Higgins got paid. I think Higgins, you look at his contract, I would argue that Higgins is a 1. I know there are people that feel very differently about that. Matter of fact, I saw a ranking where they had T. Higgins today as the 23rd best wide receiver in the league. And I thought that was fucking and they had Drake London number 9, right? Like, to me, I probably would have swapped those if I'm being honest with you. T. Higgins is one of the best of the game of stretching the field. And so for me, we have to see a little bit more from Drake London to figure out kind of where he's going to be on that pay scale. And so I don't think you'll see one here. I think you'll see an extension at the end of the next year going into that 5th year. Obviously, that 5th year will be incorporated into that extension. I just don't see one right now, being imminent.
Yeah, for sure. And T. Higgins being ranked 23, that's criminal, man. He is way better than that. But agreed with you. Like, the only thing that I'm concerned with Atlanta is right now you could potentially lock London in at a deal close to Higgins. If he pops, Jeff, let's say he has an all-pro season, right? Like, he just explodes with 9 because, frankly, those last 3 games, he went bananas. Like, if he continues that and does it for a full season, I know he's not a trendsetter, but damn, like, if he has an all-pro season heading into that 5th year, he's going to want that kind of money. He's going to want $40 million. That's what gives me concern.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to doing it both ways, right? And I would even say, who's to say that London would even sign an extension now, right? Like, there may be a part of his camp that says, play out these next 2 years, go into that, go test free agency, see what somebody can give you. There's a lot that goes into that way of thinking. So, it doesn't mean you can offer it. It doesn't mean he's going to sign it. And you could offer him, if you offered him an extension now and he doesn't play up to that, you kind of where are you at with, what I mean, as a franchise, it's kind of, especially the NFL is so weird when it comes to contracts with guys. And, it's obviously not as bad as baseball is, but, NFL does not like to overpay. They like to figure out exactly where a guy is. And again, after his first 3 years, it's really hard to peg where Drake London is because you've seen the highs and you've seen the lows and you've seen everything in between. He's definitely not as bad as Kyle Pitts, right? Like, we've seen the high of Kyle Pitts and then we've seen 2 years of lows or 3 years of lows, whatever it's been. He had 1 year of really good play. And then he's had kind of, last year, I think he had that 3 or 4 game stretch where he was on pace to have like 1,400 yards as a tight end, which would have been phenomenal for him. But, Drake London, to your point, it's one of those things where what do you do? Because there's potentially a catch-22, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Both sides are kind of, but it wouldn't shock me again if both sides were waiting to see how this year plays out to determine what his asking price is going to be. And then for the Falcons, are you going to be willing to pay that asking price? And if he gives you something at the end of the year, closer to that $30 million a year range, you fucking jump at it and sign them and be done with it. If he wants closer to 40, I think that's probably where you start to look into, who else we got, what else is in the draft. Because for me, as of right now, he's not a $40 million a year wide receiver. And to me, he's not even close to it.
No, I would not. Like, even though, from my tone, you guys can probably tell that I'm leaning towards extending him. That's what I would prefer. Not at 40. I would want like close to 30. Like that would be a good deal for Atlanta. But to your point, Jeff, his camp might be telling him, "Hey, you can get this now, but maybe if you you extrapolate those last 3 games of the season
Mm-hmm.
and project it into next year, then maybe you could get even high more than that." So we'll see what he does. I mean, I'm excited for him. The one that makes me more nervous, and I wasn't planning on bringing this up today, but since we're there, Kyle Pitts. What really freaks me out about him is this guy is probably gonna lock in his contract a year, and then we're gonna. I can't imagine us paying him 20 million a year, because like he seems like the type of guy that he'll go crazy this year, and then the following year he'll just revert back to what he's been the last 3 years here. So that gives me that makes me really nervous.
I just, and I just went and looked it up real quick. His last 3 games last year, 352 yards, 2 touchdowns, 22 catches, right? So over 17 games, that's 2,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. Like that's the potential we see, right? Like with Drake London, that's the potential that we see in him. And so, but can you be consistent and do that for more than just 3 games? And if you can, you're going to get a pretty decent payday. But even if you do that as 1 year, it doesn't mean you're worth 40 million. So it'll be interesting to see. And yeah, Kyle Pitts, like I know this is not what fans want to hear, but just trade his ass. Like you're not, if he comes out and he balls out this year, you're not going to give him what he's going to get on the open market, because he's going to get close to $20 million. Some team out there is going to be stupid enough to give him $20 million, $18 million. And the Falcons are never going to do that, right? They know it. We know it. Fans know it. Like, go ahead and cut bait now. Get something for him other than a comp pick in 2027.
Yeah, maybe trade him for a player that could help now. Maybe get someone like a center or something like that, like anything to help right now, because I mean, we want to take advantage of this year too. And I'm happy going into the season without like I rather not deal with all of his BS or whatnot. So one other thing, Jeff, and we've been talking about Jalen Ramsey potentially coming in. Have there been any updates on the trade talk with Ramsey, or are things pretty much the same as last week?
So things haven't stopped. Things haven't updated. Things haven't changed. It's still a topic of conversation that is being had. Nothing is over with. Though at this point, I think they want to get their rookie signed. They want to figure out where they are cap wise. I think the other name though is David Andrews is to watch. I think right now there's more of a sense of, hey, we need to get a better center or a different center. I know a lot of people love Nuzul. I know people really love him, which is fine. But that was weird.
Yeah.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Did you
you're
lose
back.
the audio or just the video?
No, just the video. You were good with audio.
Oh, okay. So, and this is the argument that I hated with losing Dahlman, right? Is everybody's like, oh, Nuzul was great. He filled in just fine. Do y'all motherfuckers not realize that in 7 games last year, Nuzul was the most flagged penalized center in the NFL? And he only played 7 games. So miss me with that whole he was fine. He was, he filled in great. No, he didn't. He was absolute ass. Like let's call it what it is. And if that's going to be your starting center and there's not going to be any competition at that spot, you're in for a long season. And so for me, you look at David Andrews still out there. He's rehabbing. There's still conversations with him and his people. So I think you're probably more along the lines of signing a guy like that than you are to make a trade right now. But nothing is dead. The Falcons, as we've seen, are continuing to want to better this roster and really try to make a run here over the next year or two. So no, nothing is dead. Nothing has changed. But there is definitely other names on that list that they want to maybe prioritize first.
Yeah, I could see David Andrews for sure being one of those names that they want to prioritize. I mean, I think he's from Georgia. Did he play at UGA?
Yeah, so went to high school, played high school football in Metro Atlanta. Was a walk on at UGA. Obviously, I don't think he got drafted by the Patriots, but ended up winning that job anyway. So it's a dude who's paid a lot of dues, made a lot of sacrifices. I mean, let's be honest, he can ball too, right? Like that dude. Even now, this was he didn't the whole tenure with the Patriots didn't come to an end because he wanted to retire. It's because he's in his 8th, 9th, 10th season, and he's coming off a shoulder injury, and they wanted to go younger. But as we've seen him in past years with the Falcons, getting a washed up center, and I use that term loosely, from somebody else worked out once for the Falcons, and there's no reason that it couldn't work again.
Yeah, and the name that people are referring to, if you can't make that Jeff's referring to, if you can't make the connection, is Alex Mack. Life changed in Atlanta, specifically for Matt Ryan, when Mack was on that offensive line. So let's not forget the first season under Kyle Shanahan. And I get it, it's the first season as an OC. Our offense wasn't doing too hot. Insert Mack. Now you have a real center. I think Peter Kahns might have been our center back then, and he was god awful. He was the He was the guy between Mud Duck and Mack. He was so bad, and you put him in, and all of us.
He was an All-American center coming out of Wisconsin too, by the way, right? Like, he was not supposed to be terrible. He was fucking horrific.
Second round pick too.
Horrific. Yeah.
You know what's even crazy about that, Jeff? He was actually a Falcons fan. So I remember at the time when we drafted him too, I was like, oh my God, we got like a guy that's actually a Falcons fan playing center. This is so cool. I was following him closely, but he was just, and it's such an important position on the line, right? Like, we have a rookie quarterback back there. You had someone like Dahlman, who he's not all pro, but he was, helping, identify the protections, the schemes, or whatever. Center plays a big role. You don't want to throw a rookie in there, but having a 10-year vet, a two-time Super Bowl champion. He was Tom Brady's freaking center. Yes, sign me up. Bring him over. Give Newsel some competition. If we're all so high on him, let's see if he can beat out an aging veteran with shoulder issues. If not, then I think potentially if David Andrews is healthy, it could be an upgrade over Dahlman.
Oh, 100%. And here's what I think most fans don't realize. What are the 3 least drafted positions in football? Do you know?
I would guess that center is probably one of them. And are we excluding special teams from this? Obviously.
No.
Okay.
Punters and kickers.
Okay.
Those are the 3 least drafted, right? And the reason for that, though, is if you look across, on average, only 8 centers are drafted every year. And I think it was like 4 this year. I don't think there was that many this year. But on average, it's only 8 centers drafted every year. Center position doesn't turn over often, right? Because when you find an elite one, he usually sticks in the NFL for 10, 12, 15 years. And so those guys don't come available very often. And so when you have an opportunity to go, even if it's at the end of a career like a David Andrews, you go sign him because he's more than likely better than anybody already on your roster, which is why he's been in the NFL for so long, at a position that doesn't see a high turnover rate.
It's an absolute no-brainer for me. So I hope we get that figured out. But let's circle back to the draft, Jeff. Speaking of the Patriots and David Andrews, we traded up in the 3rd round. Now, when we did that, we traded 1 pick before the Patriots. Were we coming up for Jared Wilson, who is also a center coming out of UGA? So we came up for Wilson, but then just got surprised by the Patriots there? Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I was told that as the trade was going on, I was told the text I got was Wilson. So I got really excited. And then Wilson's name was called by the Patriots, and I got like 16 middle finger emojis because that was not the plan. That is not what they expected. And so they came up to get him because they thought that was about the time that they thought he would come off the board. They just, with the Patriots signing Bradbury, they didn't think they were going to be in the market to draft the center. And so they came up behind the Patriots to go get him. And then that didn't happen. And so, your backup plan there was Xavier Watts, which probably works out. I'm not going to say just as well, but it probably works out, in your favor in this case. Because again, you got a second round talent late in the third round. And, you have to give up a fifth round next year or whatever it was. But if he plays to his level and he really is Jesse Bates 2.0, that's a hell of a trade. And, again, Falcons did some really good things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, they kind of double dipped at safety, which, maybe it doesn't provide year one value off the bat, but it's possible that Bowman plays the nickel and Watts plays free safety, so they can both be on the field at the same time.
Two very different type of players, right? And I think that is something that Bowman playing the nickel because he is a ball hawk, right? I think Xavier Watts is a little bit better of a tackler. I think he sees better in the field. Both guys see the ball really well, so you can never have too many of those guys on the field at one time. So that's I don't mind would I like a corner? Yes, but I don't mind the Bowman pick. After the Watts pick, I think both of them will bring tremendous value to this team. And again, I think the Falcons did a really good job of identifying really good talent at their spots available.
I'm a really big nerd with like war room stories and stuff when your guy texts you. So I'm going to ask you one more. I don't know if you have context or you could share it, but when the Falcons moved up for Pierce, right? Were they afraid that he was coming off the board soon? Is that why they traded up to 26? Or were they aggressively trying to go? Were they calling everybody that was picking in the 20s?
No, they started calling after pick, I think, 22. They were trying to get back into that 23 to 28 range because there were a couple teams that had Pierce and were trying to also climb back into the first round, from what I'm told, to go get Pierce. So there were some teams that were trying to jump back in as well as some teams that were already on the board there that were going to take him. So, I think the Falcons did a really good job of listening to what was being told to them and identifying where teams were kind of going to identify players and where teams were going to, where teams had guys drafted on their draft boards. And so, they tried to get up there 23, 24, 25. They ended up at 26. But they were trying to get through that 25 to 28 range because they really felt like Pierce was going to be gone potentially at 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. And so they wanted to beat it to the punch. And, again, they got another tremendous value that they got by simply swapping first round picks and then giving up a seventh, essentially what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were rumors that Howie Roseman was trying to move up in the first round. Mm-hmm. Do you know if that was for Pierce or anybody else?
I don't know. He had just been calling, and he even called the Falcons to try to get pick number 15.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. So they were trying to make some moves. But I mean, Rossman is known for doing that, right? Like he's a bulldog, no pun intended, when it comes to identifying guys and trying to make things happen. And so he'd been calling around for a while. So yeah, he called the Falcons. Falcons declined. And especially as Walker started to fall, they started to realize, because you start looking at that draft board, you start looking at what teams need. Walker was not going to make sense for certain. He wasn't going to go with the Colts because they just went that route last year. He wasn't going to play for a certain other team. So, especially as he started to fall, they stopped answering their phone. So,
I mean, look, you had it from day one. Number 1A. Walker, 1B, Carter. Not ranking. I don't even mean it like alphabetically that you had Walker over Carter or whatever. Those were the two that the Falcons had as their draft board, as their wish list. Either one, they'd be ecstatic. And we thought he could go as high as 5 to Jacksonville, potentially pairing up the Walker duo. His brother plays for that team, also a former Bulldog. But he slides down to 15. Was Atlanta stunned that he was there at 15, or was this a realistic outcome?
It was not expected. They really, and you remember a few weeks ago, I talked about how they had thought about trying, they had reached out to the Jets about trading up to 7 to go get him. Right. And so like they really did not think he would make it past pick 10. And the reason they identified 7 was because they really thought the Panthers or New Orleans were going to take him at 8 or 9. So they were trying to beat them to the punch. And so as he starts to fall, like they had to be just I would assume they had to stop breathing, right? Because you're getting the guy number one on your draft board, and now you're seeing him fall to you. They were absolutely ecstatic because they did not expect that to happen, which is why the last 2 weeks I talked about, and again, I will say this, and I did a lot of different interviews. I did a lot of different podcasts. My always answer was Walker's their guy. And the response I always got was, well, he's not going to be there. Who's next? Well, Mikael Williams was number 2. James Pierce was number 3. Like, those were their top 3 guys in order, and they would have taken any one of those 3 guys at number 15. Number 4 is kind of where you get sketchy, and they would have traded back because at 4 was Mike Green, and they would not have taken him at pick number 15. They just simply would not have done that.
It's crazy to me that Walker had that slot. I mean, I like what Panthers did getting McMillan, but I mean, in all of my mock drafts and everything, I really thought they were going to take Walker. So I'm addition by subtraction. I'm happy that we don't have to play him twice a year, and it's going to be so fun to see 2 young edge rushers. Yeah, I say it out loud, and I'm still shocked like that we have 2 young edge rushers next year that's going to go chase down Bryce Young, Tyler Shuck, or Derek Carr, whoever the stupid Saints want to start. Like, it's going to be an awesome season.
Agreed. I'm truly excited about it.
Yep. Well, I think that pretty much wraps us up, Jeff, on this week's episode of Flight Path. So we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. We'll throw this episode up probably sometime tomorrow, but really appreciate your guys' support. We can't do this without you guys. Like, it really means a lot to me and Jeff that you guys are always coming out here. Those of you guys in the live chat and everything, like we can't do this without you all. So we're happy that you guys are enjoying the content. If you guys have suggestions, anytime, drop a comment to me and Jeff on X. Ultimately, we want you guys to feel like you're a part of building this up. And one of the coolest things that I enjoyed, Jeff, before we sign off, was when you hosted the X Spaces this past Sunday, and we sort of gave the floor to you guys, and we heard from Falcons fans how they felt about the draft. So we'll do that too. This isn't just about me and Jeff. We want to give if you guys have a passion in doing this, we're in this new internet era where we want to hear from you guys. Get up on X or whatever. You don't have to go on camera. Tell us your thoughts. That part to me was really fun.
Agreed. I appreciate everybody that came in, and there's a couple hundred people who joined us, and that was a lot of fun. And we'll give the floor to as many people as we can. This isn't about us. This is about you guys. And, we're doing this because a lot of people asked us to do a podcast, so we're doing it. Right. And so, we appreciate you. We appreciate your support. This thing will grow, and we'll continue to have fun, and we'll continue to be better fans together.
Yep. There we go. All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back, I believe, next Saturday. So we're probably going to switch back to Saturday starting next week, but we'll let you guys know the details. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.